Simon side?
Maureen, will I? Or have I? Okay. So we're here tonight to get an update on the affordable housing production plan. And who is presenting? Mike?
Emily.
Emily from Central Mass Regional Planning. Should I kick it off? Or?
I'd like to just make a sort of announcement for everyone here. We're relying on the microphone that's coming from this, so if people can use their outdoor voices, we can make sure that people who are joining us virtually can hear.
Okay.
Great. So my name is Emily Globitz. I'm a principal planner at the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission. We're based in Worcester, and we provide planning support to City of Worcester and the 39 surrounding towns, so kind of all over the place. I primarily focus on housing planning, so I'll do housing elements for master plans, along with 90% of my work is housing production plans. It's probably my 7th housing production plan that I've worked on, and it's been a great experience here in Upton, I have to say. So this process kicked off. I was actually looking back at our first meeting date, which was a year ago tomorrow. So we've been working on this for a year now. Yeah. It's an update to the 2012 plan, which expired in 2017. These are 5-year plans, so it's been out of date for a while now. So we're looking to get once we hopefully approve the plan tonight, send it to the state for approval. They have about a month to review it, and then it'll be good to go for 5 years. So just a little background on why this is important. Under Chapter 40B, cities and towns are required to reserve 10% of their housing stock as deed-restricted affordable units to households earning 80% or less of the area median income. Currently, Upton is at 6.37% as of the most recent subsidized housing inventory. That was just updated less than a month ago. So the town has 189 units, and it needs a total of 297 units to comply. So you're about 100 units short of complying with this law. So under the law, if you're not meeting the 10% requirement, the town is vulnerable to developers who can seek comprehensive permits, which allows them to override local zoning laws, zoning requirements, and build more densely anywhere in town if they include affordable units. However, with this plan in place, it acts as like a local tool to prevent these 40B developments from happening, as long as the town is making gradual and demonstrating gradual production of affordable units. So if you have copies of the plan, that's more described on page, the housing production rules section on page 55. So just wanted to provide some background on why the town is doing this plan, why it's important, and then just a little bit of background on the process, how this all kind of came together, why it took a year, is we kicked off with a community-wide survey. We had that focused on housing affordability and future housing needs. We got 356 responses. I have a couple hard copies of the survey results if anyone's interested. I think the results are also posted on the town website. Let me know if it's not. I should get it on there. So that survey was open from October 2022 to January 2023. We also presented those survey results at the community forum, which was held on March 16th, 2023. That forum featured a presentation and a great Q&A session, really clarifying, hopefully, a lot of questions around Chapter 40B and affordable housing, and a small breakout activity. We were in here. We had I think it was 3 groups looking at maps of the town, talking about where in town affordable housing would be, or just housing in general, would be most appropriate to be constructed in the future, what types of housing people would like to see, and it was a really great event. So Following the public outreach component, the committee took a few meetings to develop the goals and strategies, a lot of which were included in the previous plan from 2012, but we also, I think we removed a few that weren't really appropriate anymore, and then we added a few that are now more appropriate. So generally, just a quick overview of like what the goals and strategies focused on. The first was building local capacity. So that's meaning both leveraging financial resources, but also getting community and political support to get certain housing initiatives passed, which is a really, really important thing for people to understand what affordable housing is, why we need it, and what kind of actions are out there to help the town improve their affordable housing stock. The second goal focused on, and so I should say, so we've got 4 main goals, and under them are more specific strategies. So the second goal is to make zoning and planning reforms. So regulatory barriers end up preventing some much needed types of housing from being built. So changing the zoning can help facilitate the types of housing that meet people's needs, but also are desirable and fit with the character of the community. The third goal was centered around building partnerships with private and nonprofit developers to provide, on the town's end, provide support for projects and remove any kind of challenges or barriers that there are to creating housing. The fourth goal was making sure that the existing affordable housing stock remains affordable and is preserved so the town doesn't lose these important affordable units on the subsidized housing inventory. And also kind of exploring ways that maybe existing housing could be deed restricted as affordable. So that's a brief overview of the goals. I also wanted to, a lot of our discussions focused on the areas in town that would be most appropriate for future housing. So I just want to bring that to your attention, what those discussions kind of ended up filtering down to. So we decided that the town center would be most appropriate for any new housing units. The Route 140 corridor, areas that are zoned under general business. There's a stretch on kind of the northern part of Westboro Road. I think there's some town property up there. As well as an interesting one that came up that's recommended in there is Pleasant Woods, which is currently under conservation status, but given its potential for housing, we found that there's an opportunity for land exchange. In exchange for another parcel of land in town to be conserved, I think it's currently under the Conservation Commission's ownership. So they would, maybe you can explain this a little bit better than myself, but
We can remove that from conservation restriction and then apply our land, basically swap it out so that there's no net loss of conservation.
Is that the parcel that kind of runs behind Dunkin' Donuts from Warren Street to Dunkin' Donuts?
We had talked about not going all the way, not doing the whole parcel, correct?
it's about 30 feet.
I did not think it was just sort of the part closest. I think that was part of the discussion.
It has some frontage on Warren, so I think that's the part that you're alluding to, Kathy. It has frontage on Warren Road or Warren Street as well, and it does have some frontage behind, I believe it's number 4 Hartford Ave. So it's unknown what the property looks like and what promise it holds as far as wet or ledge, or maybe it's good high ground, we don't know. But it's something that should be considered for, again, its close proximity and also the availability of town services, water and sewer, which again, we know that we're very limited on what's available that checks all those boxes. But we don't know what that land looks like, which part of it may be good, if any of it. So, but it's something to consider and something that we thought we'd let the board know that it may be worth taking some resources to look at that parcel especially where the Conservation Commission is amicable to the land swap. So that parcel is in play.
And that parcel was identified in the 2012 Housing Production Plan as well, as one of the most feasible spots in town.
Because the majority of our affordable housing, when you look at it, is really centered along that west Upton corridor. So, and our most densely populated section of town is that as well. So it kind of makes sense to continue along that same theory or that same strategy.
Yeah, that was kind of my summary. So I guess I open it up for questions. Just to clarify, the goal for tonight is for each board to vote to approve the housing production plan. Once we have that, I can then submit it to, not DHCD, it's now called the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. Yeah, they changed their name, so now I have to remember that. But, and yeah, and then they may or may not get feedback to us. Usually when I've gotten feedback in the past, it's just been very, very minor things. I've had really good success with getting these passed, so hopefully that would happen, within the next month. So I think I open it up for questions.
Just a quick comment. Before this meeting, the Affordable Housing Trust came out of a fairly deep slumber that lasted a couple of years, and we reconvened. The members, we have quorum here tonight, the members are here tonight, and we had questions at that meeting about this plan, and the conclusion, I think, was that we welcome it for the guidance, and our interest in being able to achieve safe harbor status at some point if we proactively move to move forward with the affordable housing development in the town. So we thank you for your efforts, and appreciate it. They may have some questions. I think that this information is available online, so if people want to read the report, that's where they can access it. So.
Good question. So, in some of the text, and first of all, great job. I did look through it, and everyone that put a lot of time into it. It's a great report, and I really like the tone of pretty much everything and how it gives the town a framework for moving forward. A lot of different paths that the town can choose and still, be consistent with the plan. I think that's really important. Some of the language that I think just struck a chord with me, it talks about that this 40B mandates that we be at 10%. I don't see that in the statute. Is it a mandate or it's an encouragement? And if you're not at that 10%, then you're more susceptible, the developer that comes in with a 40B project has an easier path to approval. So it was just some, in some places, and I looked at a couple of other towns that have the same language, they talk about it's encouraging, 40B encourages affordable housing, where in a couple of places we have it that it's, the housing threshold is mandated by 40B. I don't see it in the statute, and I would just sort of, probably the only change that I would make is instead of mandated, use the word encouraged. Instead of a requirement, they could use the word goal, because that does seem to be what it is, and that's elsewhere in the text. So that was the only thing I had, and similar, it says that if we don't meet any safe harbors, then we will not be able to deny a comprehensive permit. I would say we may not be able to, because obviously if the comprehensive permit isn't acceptable for some other reason, you don't have to approve it. If they came and said it was age restricted, you couldn't have anybody over age 55, you don't have to approve that plan, because that's consistent with state law. So that was the only thing that I would try and soften it up a little bit, unless the professional planners on not one tell me that 40B does mandate it and require the town to have 10% as opposed to encourage it.
Yeah, that's a great point. I would say because it kind of has that, I want to call it like a punishment, but like if you don't do that, then something you're vulnerable to comprehensive plans. That, in my mind, is a kind of a mandate. An encouragement would be more of a suggestion.
So the town of Holden is testing that, like,
Yeah.
with the MBTA communities right now, and saying, hey, it's just an encouragement, and we're gonna forego the MBTA money, and the state has now said, well, no, it's a mandate, you shall, and there's been a suit filed, and they're saying you shall. So I just don't know if this is that, or if it's more of the encouragement. That's my only comment. I'm happy with the plan as I said.
Yeah, I'll double check the language on that from Mass General laws. Does anyone else have any input on that? So I thought it was kind of called a mandate, but that.
Legally, they're, I think Paul's right. From a legal perspective, it's like the difference between shall and may. So we probably want to clarify it.
I'm quickly just looking, I always thought it was shall. It wasn't a may, because otherwise that passive language, no town probably would have been really
Right.
stuck up.
I mean, it's cause and effect. It's not that you have to do it. It's that if you don't do it, then 40B is applicable in your town.
Right.
Or whatever works for you.
I wonder if the word statute would work better there?
You know, it might be the statute, it's not much in the statute, so I think you're correct to look through. It's really two paragraph section of the statute, kind of give all of the direction in the statute, and I just didn't see that. It seems like it, like Brett said, it's more, you know, if you don't do this, or you don't fall into one of these categories, these safe harbors, then if somebody comes in with a 40B plan or any comprehensive plan, they have an easier time. They can bypass local and they can go on appeal. If the town denies it, they go up to a more friendly board at the state level and then can, you know, get that project approved, even though the town denied it. So I think it's definitely encouraging, but I just don't know
It's funny because the fact that a non-friendly 40B exists and it happens everywhere, the fact that that exists, I don't know if it's, I mean, you raise a great point, but I don't know if it's almost like a moot point, right? Because how can there be this punishment that hangs over our head, right? We were, obviously, this was a reality on Mechanic Street, and we're facing it again right on Main Street. So it exists, right? The board, I believe, is not in favor of the project on Route 140, but we're all well aware of the fact that it's going to go before Boston. So the fact that they have the ability to mandate it upon us, or, you know, for lack of a better term, you know, jam it down our throats. I'm not sure.
So I'm okay with it. I just raise it as it's more of a nuance, Steve. So you very well might be right with your take on it. It was just I read it for the first time today, and that's what struck me.
I don't want to argue legal interpretation of verbiage with a lawyer, but by all means, if we can find a softer word there, I think that makes sense.
I was just going to offer basically what Emily said, is just to take another look at the statute and the applicable regs, 760 CMR, and see, just make sure we're being consistent with that language is all, rather than try to delineate the difference between may and shall here, but we'll make sure we're consistent. And that I assume that change would be acceptable to both boards. Should we make a very small change as far as language like that, it's not going to change the, you know, the rest of the substance of the report.
Everybody formally has finished. I have a question. In respect to the plan being not something defensive but an actual plan, I couldn't quite hear everything because of the acoustic, but does it take into account the MBTA requirements? I just heard the other day that the state is talking about being serious about the funding withdrawal. I don't know how many steps that means, but are we taking that into account in the design of the plan?
Yeah, that's one of the recommendations that's included in the plan, is to comply with the Section 3 and MBTA communities.
So that's an important part of planning ahead to meet the MBTA community. And we've had the opportunity to do it. I hope it's being taken.
We had that within our discussion, but that really was not under our jurisdiction.
No?
We had that within mind, and I believe at the community outreach, we had a conversation about this, so
We did.
it's there, we know, we discussed it, but ultimately, I think it'll be a decision, probably planning board, board of selection are ultimately going to have that decision. I think that's going to be out of our hands. We've
Okay.
identified parcels, but that's,
It's coming.
yes, but.
Yeah, and then ultimately town meeting will have to vote to approve that
Oh, yeah.
zoning change.
Yeah.
So definitely more to come on that.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see, as you mentioned, the town of Holden, it will be interesting to see what happens when towns do not pass a 40B requirement. If enough towns don't do it, what happens then?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. I'm not sure we're in a position to play that game, but again, that's
2.5 times our size, yeah.
it's above my pay grade.
Can I just confirm that there's no recommendation in here around to potential locations that would meet that requirement right now? It's just like, yeah, we should comply with those regulations in some way. That's in the housing production plan, but recommendations around how we could meet that are sort of pending clarification, finalization of the actual requirement, as well as further analysis and study by the town.
Yeah,
Fair.
that's gonna be another process. So
Yeah,
I don't think this felt comfortable deciding these locations.
Yeah,
We
totally.
want a lot more public input on that as well, so.
Perfect.
But the plan sort of said you should consider whether that you're going to comply, how you're going to comply with that and how that could further the housing production plan, but not a direction as to how to do that.
Yeah.
That's how I read it.
Well, quite a few of our discussions were exactly where they should be located or how. Knowing MBTA is coming down the pipe, we kind of held off because there is going to be an MBTA committee that specifically is going to be tasked with defining these areas, and it all needs to go through planning, and I believe MBTA community, that committee is going to fall under your group. Because you guys have the final say. You know, zoning, there's going to need to be zoning changes, there's going to need to be, we discussed quite a bit of it, but it's a big task. It's pretty heated discussions about that
Through the chair of the board of selectmen, there's a planning board meeting scheduled to start 7.
Have we any more input or questions? Are both boards ready to take a vote? We'll have the planning board go first.
Do I hear a motion to accept the recommendations by the Housing Production Plan Steering Committee and accept the plan as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Paul?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye?
Margaret, aye?
Tom?
Aye.
And I vote aye, so it is unanimous.
Thank you.
Make a motion that we approve the housing production plan as presented.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Brett Simon.
I, Laura Hepp.
Aye, Maureen Canal. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emily.
The planning